Did Indians invent airplanes? I can see you laughing. I can see the question evoking chuckles of amusement or even ridicule. I'm sure not only those who think rationally and vouch by scientific temper, but even those who got at least some traces of common sense and basic knowledge of history will be puzzled when such a question is asked in this era. After almost well over 100 plus years since the Wright brothers designed and successfully flew the first self-powered aircraft on 17th of December 1903. Well, that assumption holds well only when you are dealing with people in their right sense. Not with the people who are on the extreme right of the ideological spectrum. For the right-wing ultra-nationalists in India, airplane was invented by ancient Indians thousands of years ago. No amount of reasoning or correction would deter them from continuously propagating the same insanity, be it in common public babbles or in dignified science forums where serious intellectual deliberations are supposed to be the norm of the proceedings. These are not just illiterate or uneducated, ignorant lots. Those who indulge in such false and irrational propaganda include ministers, political leaders, and those who decorate, or rather deface, I must say, high public offices. It's so shameful that the latest to join the bandwagon of these right-wing promoters of unscientific and nonsensical ramblings is none other than the Minister of State in charge of human resource development in the country. He wants the students at the centers of higher learning like IITs be taught about Pushpaka Vimana, the mythical airplane mentioned in the great Indian epic Ramayana. Ministers after ministers from the right-wing BJP-ruled states keep repeating such absurdities at regular intervals without fail. Some of them go to the extent of claiming that airplanes flew left and right in the Indian airspace, even carrying out interplanetary voyages many thousands of years ago before the rest of the world even heard of the word flying. The proof? Well, there is a mention about Vimana in the text of Ramayana, and that's a good enough proof for them. When the country's Prime Minister himself leads the pack, making a fool of self by boasting that Indians practiced plastic surgery even in the prehistoric times, citing Indian mythological stories about Lord Ganesha's head transplant with an elephant head, one cannot expect any better from his ministerial and party colleagues, can we? Such seemingly ridiculous attempts to raise insane claims could have been brushed aside as misdeeds of a few lunatics. But for the fact that these dubious attempts are very calculated and integral part of a larger venomous fascist agenda. It's a deliberate jingoist attempt to evoke misplaced nationalistic pride to further the racist and religious wedge in the society. A typical ultra-rightist strategy followed world over. The ultra-nationalists who swear by a top-to-bottom divisive, racist, retrogressive ideology idolize none other than Goebbels and follow his methods to propagate and spread their carefully fabricated lies. As long as they keep spreading the venom, we are forced to be on constant vigil, providing the necessary anti-venom of facts and truths. Superstitions, myths, myths and blatant lies become the most potent tools in their constant effort to strengthen their power base by polarizing the population on religious basis. And eventually they use their power to protect the interest of the rich, enabling vulgar accumulation of wealth in the hands of the elite. That's the ultimate objective. Hence, these lies cannot be left unexposed. So let's come back to the question of airplane and debunk the claim once again. Did Indians invent airplane? Of course, the answer is an absolute no. Then, what about the mention of Vimana in Ramayana and the existence of so-called ancient texts that discuss airplanes? For the starters, is Ramayana the only ancient classic text that refers to flying? Not at all. There are many myths and traditions from different parts of the world and civilization that spoke about flights in the ancient times. Babylonian mythology spoke about flying machines. The stories of Daedalus and his son Icarus in the Greek mythology are very popular, as detailed in the Greek classic Metamorphoses. Daedalus built two flying crafts, one for himself and one for his son Icarus, to be used in his mission of going home by air to evade King Minos. Models mimicking flying objects have been discovered from different parts of the world, including Venezuela, Peru, Colombia, and so on. A model of a flying craft emulating the form of a bird was discovered during an excavation of a tomb in Egypt and was dated back to around 200 BC. Many of the engravings in the Temple of Seti in Egypt resemble modern-day aircrafts. Ancient Chinese mythology too has mentions about flights. There are references to Chinese Emperor Shengtang having succeeded in building a flying craft way back in 1760 BC. He is said to have subsequently destroyed the same to prevent anyone else discovering the secret of flight. Nepali traditions too have mentions about powered crafts, and they thought only Yavanas knew the real secret of flights. So the point is, many ancient civilizations had such stories, and they reflect humans' desire to fly, and probably many of them thought flying would indeed become possible someday. However, it will be childish to think that those ancient civilizations did indeed build flying machines based on these mythological references. In their mythical stories, gods flew in such flying crafts. Many countries have myths about gods and stars descending from heaven and copulating with women on the earth, similar to the stories in the epic Mahabharata, where the princess Kundi gets impregnated by the sun god. We don't take these stories in their literal sense in the modern times. Mythologies from all civilizations around the world have numerous such illustrious stories that reflected human desire to overcome their inherent limitations. Striking similarities of many of the gods and goddesses, religious ideas, rituals, beliefs, traditions, etc., of ancient people in different parts of the globe are not merely coincidental. As J. Garnier observed, most of these were originally derived from a common source or center. So, the mythical legend King Ravana with a Pushpak Vimana in the Ramayana is not a testimony at all to the existence of flying crafts in India in the prehistoric times. Another most commonly made argument is about the existence of an ancient text named Vaimanika Shastra, Science Aeronautics, where aircraft designs have been discussed in detail. People often talk about this book as if it is an ancient text dating back by a few thousand years, containing Vedic designs of aircraft authored by Saint Bharadwaja. But the truth is far from it. Research has proved that this often mentioned text is in fact not even 100 years old, most likely written sometime between 1918 and 1923. The book was written by one Suresh Shastri, who was born in Hosur in the state of Tamil Nadu and later lived in the Anakkal Taluk of Karnataka. Shastri died in the year 1941. The research study was conducted by Dr. Deshpande and his team from Indian Institute of Science, ISC, in the year 1974, and they brought to the fore the real story behind the book Vaimanika Shastra. They found out that a book named Brihat Vimana Shastra was published by an author named Brahmamuni Parivraja in the year 1959. This book has Sanskrit slokas along with Hindi translations. Later in 1973, Mysore International Sanskrit Research Center had also published another book by G.R. Josier that included Sanskrit slokas along with English translations. Parivraja had claimed in the preface that his book was based on an original script called Yandra Saraswa, authored by same Maharishi Bharadwaja. However, in subsequent investigations, it became clear that both Parivraja's and Josier's book were based on a common manuscript, the one written by Suresh Shastri, which was available in the Sanskrit library in Baroda. The language and narrative style, of course, proved that the book must have been written not more than 100 years ago. It may be noted that none of the so-called airplane designs described in Shastri's manuscript are tenable as far as its validity to build a working model of a flying machine is concerned. None of the planes have properties or capabilities of being flown, the geometries are horrendous, and the principles of propulsion make them resist rather than assist flight. These designs were simply his imaginative work, and seemed he himself had doubts about the validity of those designs. As Shastri could not read or write himself, he dictated the verses to one Mr. Venkatachala Sharma. The ISC team could personally meet Mr. Sharma, as well as one Mr. Venkatrama Shastri, the adopted son of Suresh Shastri, as part of their research study. So, in short, the text Vaimanika Shastra, often cited as an ancient text, is only 100 years or so old, and the designs in there are neither any Vedic designs nor working models. The ISC research team has recorded in detail the life story of Mr. Suresh Shastri. It's interesting. He was a man of simplicity and of unpretentious nature, and had to struggled throughout his life and braved some of the worst calamities that a man may have to endure in his life. He was born in a small village in Hosur and got married at the age of 8. He didn't have any formal education, and his parents died early, and he had to support his family mostly by begging. His sisters and a brother died of smallpox. He himself got such a severe attack that he had to leave home and went on exile, living in a forest for many years. And it is there he seemed to have met a Guruji who cured his disease and imparted him with the secrets of many Shastras. He claimed that he was enlightened by Maharishi Bharadwaja in the dream and got the knowledge on Vaimanika Shastra. Later, Shastri settled near Anakkal and also adopted Venkatrama Shastri as his son, as I mentioned earlier. Shastri had no formal education or training of any kind and learned to read Kannada and Telugu after he returned from exile, after his encounter with his Guruji. So he dictated his big book to Mr. Venkatachala Sharma after some 25 years after the stated psychic experience. He did not either mention his name in the book, and it's written as if it was directly authored by Rishi Bharadwaja. Hence the confusion. And people often refer to this book as one authored by Rishi Bharadwaja many thousands of years ago. Shastri also got the drawings done by one Mr. Leppa, who was a draftsman in a local engineering college then. And Shastri seemed to have made several trips to Bombay, talking to many people about his Vaimanika Shastra. One of the enthusiasts Shastri seemed to have interacted with while in Bombay was Mr. Shitkar Bapuji Talpade. Talpade was born in 1864 in Bombay and died in the year 1916. Talpade tried to make models under the guidance of Shastri, but he was not successful in making any of them fly. Of course, the so-called Vedic designs he relied on to build his craft were inworkable ones. The technical basis of these so-called Vedic designs, which was supposedly used by Talpade, has been debunked by research looking at the technological feasibility of such flights. So, you can't blame Talpade if his models didn't work. The HRD minister, Mr. Satyapal Singh now, as he demanded in his address at an event conducted by All India Council for Technical Education in the month of September 2017, wants Talpade to be recognized as the Indian who invented aircraft first, almost 8 years before the Wright brothers did. Mr. Singh, of course, needs to make up his mind first on whether Talpade invented the airplane in 1895 or it was already invented 5,000 years ago. He has to decide that first. Now, pictures from this book are the ones people often circulate, identifying them as Vedic aircraft designs under the names Shakuna Vimana, Rukma Vimana, etc. Well, when someone is hell-bent on glorifying everything about the past for ulterior motives, absence of evidences don't bother them. They would simply fabricate evidences if there are none. We must remember that many people pursued the dream of flying at different times and at different places. Along with Wright brothers, many others, including Talpade, did try and make numerous attempts, especially towards the end of 19th century and in the beginning of 20th century. In fact, Da Vinci made those famous design drawings 2 or 3 centuries even before that. So many people tried to build the flying machines. Many failed. Even Wright brothers have failed many times before they could hit upon a working model. That is exactly how the humankind has acquired new knowledge, by asking questions and engaging with their surroundings through observations, experiments, evidences, failures and refinements. Knowledge has no physical boundaries, and its proliferation helps to expand the collective wisdom of the human race. As Newton famously said, we try to see farther standing on the shoulders of our predecessors, and we keep enriching and correcting ourselves with respect to our knowledge about the universe we live in. Studies and explorations about our past generations and their civilizations should certainly be encouraged, and it's to our advantage and common good that we gather knowledge about our past. However, such efforts should be guided within the framework of science and with an objective of adding to the wealth of our common knowledge pool. The contributions of ancient India to the fields of philosophy, astronomy, mathematics, arts, health sciences, and numerous other fields of learning are well recognized by the world, and these achievements do not belong to any one group or community. These are all part of our common heritage, and every Indian has the right to be proud of being a descendant of such a great civilization. However, we should be honest and realistic enough to admit that we are way behind the developed societies in this modern era in terms of our pursuance of new knowledge and in our effort to harness scientific temper in our new generations. Our efforts should be to closely watch and understand the trends in science and technology world over, and to make full use of those advances to better the lives of our people. Living in the imaginary self-created cocoon of the fabricated past glory will only leave us behind in the race towards advancement and progress. The extremist rights in India must realize that they are doing a great disservice to the nation by indulging in falsehood and pursuing a divisive and destructive agenda.